Hi everyone, it is mid-February in my backyard garden, and I wanted to share a little bit about what I do to help support the plants when we're having some pretty drastic weather. Right now we are having a lot of rainy weather again in this area, and I am constantly fighting, especially in this backyard part of the garden, the ability for the plants to be able to grow without getting too much water or without getting too much sun, because this can get super hot in this area. The one thing that I don't have to worry about too much is the cold, although installation of those pergolas that you're seeing this past year has actually prevented me from having to do much more than just really worry about the water and there being too much water. But again, because the entire garden is mounted, and it's mounded like this, right? So it's hard to see from this level, but there is a lot of mounding that's done, and at its highest point it's about 3 feet off of the ground, so the plants actually get a lot of drainage as a result from that. But definitely these pergolas are pretty important. Even if I'm getting too much rain, for example, I can just put shade cloth over the top, which will block a lot of the rain that's coming down on top of the plants. During the summertime, it's the exact same thing. I purchased these pergolas after my first year with all of these plants. It was incredibly difficult to come out here constantly and have to cover them, make sure that they were okay from too much sun or too much rain. These pergolas have been huge in making my life easier, at least maintaining these plants and creating more of an ideal environment for them. I will put the link to these pergolas in the description for this video. These pergolas are really cool for two reasons. The first is because you can actually cut them. They're plastic. So when I installed this, these pergolas are actually too wide. They would have gone off into this walkway area. And so what I did is I cut the length here at the top. These poles just slide onto these horizontal beams that you're seeing up here. They just slide on there, so you can actually customize the size of these pergolas, and that was perfect for what I needed, which was to be able to cover this area. The second is that most pergolas this size, you would be paying over $1,000 for something like this. I searched the internet far and wide, and I found where you can purchase these for $650, and again, I'll put the link in the description. That was a more reasonable price. Clearly, I actually have 4 of these. So you're seeing the first one is way in the back there. The second one is right here. I customized these 2. The ones that are actually behind me, those were okay. I was able to put in and leave the size that came from the manufacturer. I'm growing a bougainvillea vine in order to not have to put shade cloth eventually over the top of these pergolas, and so that's why that bougainvillea vine is there. There's actually 2 of them, and this has just been a game changer for me in terms of the type of plants that I can grow. I don't have to worry about them being so hardy. This back area tends to not have a hard time with any of the frost or anything like that. It's actually more of an issue around having too much sunlight. So you can see it's starting to rain. We are getting some crazy weather here in Northern California. Hopefully this is one of the last few storms that we'll have. I don't worry too much about the plants having too much liquid, and the reason why is because I actually mounded, and you can see a little of that when you look towards the back. You can see that the mound is actually up. It's higher. Total, it was about 4 feet off of the ground when I put the mound in. They've slowly started to settle, so they'd say they're probably more about anywhere from 2 to 3 feet, depending on what part that you're looking at. But this is how I grow these plants in my backyard without having too much of a struggle in terms of the extreme weather that can come in. This is clearly massively overgrown. I will be doing a lot of work this spring to thin this out, and I usually take a lot of the cuttings into my work, or I bring them to my local succulent and cactus society groups because they're always looking for additional cuttings. If you're interested in this hobby and you want to join your local cactus and succulent society, I highly encourage you to. It's only $15 a year. You get monthly talks that you can go to. You can meet other people who like to do a similar type of activity, and you get free cuttings. A lot of my plants have come from receiving free cuttings, that just attending the monthly meeting. So really encourage you to join and find other people who like this hobby. You can see my dog has been super awesome and has been breaking through on the fence. It's caused a bit of damage. You can see this jade right here that she pushed over. So she likes to go into this little area, so I'm often having to redo it. I used to get super frustrated about it, but at this point it kind of gives me an excuse to come out and play with plants, so it's not too big of a deal. These are a lot of the plants. Again, these started a couple years back just as cuttings, and I will have to clearly do a lot of trimming this coming spring, because this will just explode. This plant right here that is flowering, where you see the orange flowers, that's called a blue elf. And it is a jade, and it is, it's an aloe, and it is a super awesome plant. The hummingbirds love those, so this is a aloe that you want to get. What's also nice about this is that it actually tends to grow in an upright manner. A little hard to see from this angle, but I'll show you in a second. And that is really nice because it gives you a little bit of the height, it gives you some of the spike, and you can see, because it's been in the garden for a while, there's actually a lot of blooms that are about to come out on that plant. Some of the hanging plants that I have watermelon, which is this one right here. Watermelon is super cool. Literally, they look like little mini watermelons hanging on the plant. The planter is a coconut shell, which is pretty cool. I'm going to give this like a 3 out of a 5. Some of these are really great, and they look super cute, just like this one does. Others, they've kind of cracked, and I've had problems with them. So, it's hit or miss if you end up having a problem with the plants. Again, more aeoniums all along the back. I run out of room for aeoniums because I'm constantly buying those varieties, and so that's why you see those along the fence line. I'll also put the link to how you can buy those plastic pots and those rings. Those have held up super well. They don't have huge long screws, so they aren't really messing my fence up, and I love that quite a bit for being able to kind of break up the fence line. It's super nice. The garden is growing really well. There's a happy little doggies playing. This is the Aeonium crest that I just received. Like I talked about in the other video, part of what I needed to do was make sure that I was strapping this down here at the bottom. It doesn't have roots yet, so it needs that in place until the roots form, and then this will be able to stand on its own. It is, I don't know, almost 2 feet tall. Maybe a foot and a half to 2 feet tall. So it's top heavy, and that can end up being a problem. These are some of my plants that I am actually rooting. So these are ocotillo cuttings, and then these are actually little baby mangaves. I believe it's Mission to Mars. Those grow like crazy, by the way. If you need a big red plant in your yard, those are perfect to put into place. So everything's growing great. Here's again that blue elf aloe. You can see a little better from this direction what that plant looks like. It's spiky, stands upright. These are perfect when you're doing pots. You want to have 3 things. You want to have a spiller, you want to have a thriller, which is what this would be, and then you're going to have fillers. So when you're doing any type of pot, you want to have a plant that's kind of standing upright. That becomes your thriller. Then you have your fillers. Then you have your spillers. Blue elf is great for adding that thriller content. More of the plants in this area. As you can see, there's a lot of leaves. I need to actually go through here and clean these out. This is a euphorbia. This plant I am always surprised when it keeps the leaves. It's called Petalanthus bracteus, I think. And these do not like the cold. It goes below 50 degrees and they immediately drop all of their leaves, but because of that pergola, I'm actually able to keep them. They do get these really beautiful little pink flowers on them. They root very slowly, but you can actually cut them at any place, although down lower is better. When you cut them down low, what they will do is branch out from there and you'll get multiple different cuttings, and this fills in over time. The thing about this particular type of euphorbia, and really actually euphorbias in general, is that they have a white sap on them and they can hurt you and hurt your skin. Most people have an allergic reaction to it. I seem to be lucky and I don't, but you definitely don't want that in your eyes. You're going to end up in a hospital visit as a result. So I do tend to keep that in pots just where I can watch it more closely and I don't have to worry about my dogs rubbing up against it or getting burnt, because it will also burn their skin. As you've seen before, I also put bromeliads into the garden. So these are a number that I have received over the years. At this point, they're just pupping and creating babies, and so I just clip them off. When they get about 3/4 of the size of the bromeliad, the parent bromeliad, I cut them off and then move them to another part of the garden and start some more. But they're nice because they create these little splashes within your garden area. It's more of a tapestry look. You can see that I came in here recently and cleaned out a lot of this, so you can see some of the exposed cuts still. I try not to do that, but it's not always easy. Some of the plants, they just get a little crazy, and that's why you end up with something like that. This is a kaleidoscope mangave. Super beautiful. It's a little unhappy right now, and that's because I dug it up recently. It had a bunch of pups around the base, and so I was pulling those off and giving those to some of my friends. When you do that and you basically are disrupting the roots, what happens is you put it back in the ground, and that pink that you're seeing, that hot pink, is because it's distressed. So kaleidoscope mangave, absolutely stunning, very beautiful. It will continue having that pink, that hot pink, while it's upset, while its roots were disturbed, and then over time it will actually become green and white, essentially, more variegated and less pink as it established roots. But again, you know, with succulents, you can just take them out of the ground, cut the roots off, put them back in, and it will actually cause the plant to get distressed, and then you can get that pink look. So more of the plants in this area. This one right here, Kalanchoe, this is going to have a death bloom. So what that means is that the plant is 2 years old now. So, and it's also got some bugs. So that's awesome. So I can see that in there with the little black dots. So this plant is basically 2 years old. It's not the cutest anymore either. Normally I like these because these paddle plants, because you get these bright red edges like this in the green. What this will do is it's going to die because it's what is called monocarpic. It means that it's going to send out a death bloom from the center, but I'm not going to do much with it. I'm just going to kind of leave that there. I'll enjoy the bloom while it happens, and then eventually I will cut that off. But what the plant will do is down at the bottom is it'll create a bunch of babies. Those babies will start to pop out. So it's worth it to just leave the plant alone for now. I'm not going to mess with it too much, especially because it's rainy and it's not looking in the greatest condition, as you can see. And so I'm going to just wait until that death bloom happens, and then I will go ahead and I will cut that off, and the little babies that will be left will grow back into plants that look similar than that, although much nicer. You can see another version of a death bloom back here. So this is actually an aeonium death bloom. Again, they're monocarpic. So what that means is that particular branch that aeonium has is producing that bloom. That one branch will die, but it will send off babies all around it. So it isn't like you lose your plant, you're just losing that branch of the plant. And that's what a death bloom looks like. They're very pretty. The bugs like them. Bees like them. So I tend to leave them on for a little bit. They're nice to enjoy. You can actually cut those and you can put them in a vase and they will last a really, really long time. Again, it's a succulent, so They are used to not having a bunch of water, so you give them water and they tend to last for forever. My desert museum tree has not been happy with the rain. You can see it's leaning now out into the walkway, so I will have to pull that back. When it gets a little drier, I will work on staking that back down at the base and pulling that upright just so that it's growing in a better way. The idea with this desert museum tree is that it's going to grow. This is again the really hot part of my yard during the summertime. That desert museum tree is going to work perfectly in this area to help to shade it, but it'll be a very light shade. It'll be kind of a filtered shade, and that's what desert museum trees have. You need to remember, if you're looking for a tree that you want to plant succulents or cacti under, they do need sun. So desert museum trees are great for this. This will get yellow flowers all over it in spring. And it also has tiny leaves, so it allows a lot of that sunlight through. It will protect your plants from frost because frost falls down. And so if you have a tree like this that is spread out over the top of your plants, you actually don't have to worry about it from a frost perspective. The thing about this is you can actually buy two varieties. You don't want to get the variety that has the spines on it. They are pretty bad, especially if it's in a place where people are going to be walking through. You can see on this tree, it does not have spines. So it's a specific type of tree. I got these on Etsy, believe it or not. They are only a year old. When I got it, it was maybe a foot tall, and that's what it's done in a year. So they grow really fast, especially when they have water. You need to be a little careful with that because the branches can be not very strong and they can actually break in weather. And so you want to be careful how you're trimming it so that you're taking that into account if there's going to be a problem in the future. But that's why the desert museum tree is there, is to provide some filtered shade and to help this portion of the yard do a little better. So again, more planters and pots, just lots of graptopetalums and sedums, different. I just basically poke things into this pot that I use later. Sometimes when I'm doing different wreaths or different type of succulent crafts or things like that, I'll pull out of this pot. Sometimes if I need additional plants for when I'm putting together tapestries or anything like that. So I have several of these pots that are around the yard that I just keep these items in. I can see more of the beautiful plants. Again, one of my favorites when they stitch together like that. And that tapestry look is just super beautiful. Okay, so this is my rainy garden, backyard garden in Northern California, mid-February. And these are the pergolas that help to support, to keep the climate in a good place for these plants. You can see several of them as they go down the side of the house. Hope you've enjoyed the content. Reach out with any comments or questions. And I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Like and subscribe. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.